from that launch, and so far all systems are a go.
All systems are go. Everything looks absolutely perfect for this launch. It's very exciting. You can really feel the energy in the air as people behind me. I want to give you a live look at the countdown clock here and look at the large crowd that has gathered here. It's simply amazing. Everybody gathering to watch this 4.5 million pound piece of machinery blast off. I think we have some live looks that NASA is providing to us. Something to think about whenever you watch the Space Shuttle Endeavour blast off for the final time here is it has a thrust of 7.8 million pounds. 7.8 million pounds of thrust. To put that in perspective, that's about the same as 130 737s. So imagine being the commander, being Mark Kelly, being the 5 other astronauts at the helm right there. It's truly exciting right now, guys.
And Chris, let's talk a little bit about NASA's Endeavour here. This is the youngest orbiter for NASA. A lot is going to happen after this launch. It will be retired. It's going to California. There's a lot of historical aspects in that as well.
Yeah, it's actually sad whenever you talk to some of the people who work here because there will be layoffs after this launch. This is the 25th and final launch, final mission for Space Shuttle Endeavour. Its first mission was back in 1992, so it is the youngest in the fleet. Once it returns after a now 16-day mission, it will then be retired and put into a museum. So it's bittersweet and it's truly historic to watch this take place. And of course, there's a lot more energy and it's somewhat special also because of Commander Mark Kelly commanding this and Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords being here in attendance, and to have the ability to be here in attendance is truly remarkable.
All right, Christopher, we are just about 30 seconds away from
I think we're going to watch this together.
We're going to watch this together. We're going to send it over now to Mission Control as we listen in to the final moments of this shuttle being on that launch pad and getting ready for liftoff.
Closing the liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen fill and drain valves. Standing by for the handoff to Endeavour's onboard computers. T-minus 31 seconds and the handoff has occurred.
25. 20.
Firing chain is armed. Hot suppression water system is armed. Go for main engine start. 8, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 0, and liftoff for the final launch of Endeavour. We're expanding our knowledge, we're expanding our lives in space.
Houston, Endeavour, roll program. Roger, roll, Endeavour.
Houston is now controlling. Endeavour beginning to roll over onto its back. The roll program underway as Endeavour begins a heads down position on course for a 51.6 degree, 136 by 36 statute mile orbit. Three engines now throttling down as Endeavour passes through the area of maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle in the lower atmosphere. Approaching 1 minute into the flight.
Endeavour, go at throttle up. Roger, go at throttle up.
Endeavour's 3 main engines now back at full throttle, all 3 engines in good shape. Endeavour's already traveling 1,300 miles per hour at an altitude of 11 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, now 12 miles. At liftoff, Endeavour fully fueled, weighed 4.5 million pounds. It's already lost half that weight in propellant now, burned that weight. Next event is burnout and separation of the twin solid rocket boosters. That upcoming here shortly at the 2 minute 3 second point. Those boosters are burning 11,000 pounds of fuel per second.
Astronaut Ed Gibson is joining us now on the set. Wow, we had goosebumps. I'm telling you, they were huge Explain for us what's happening at this very moment.
Well, at this moment, we're getting ready for stage separation, which just occurred. We saw the 2 solid rockets drop away, and now they're on the 3 main engines. And the first stage is noisy and rough, like a high-speed train with square wheels. And when those solids are going, you know you're going somewhere. You just hope it's in the right direction.
Right.
And you know you've got a long trip ahead of you, especially when you were in space. You spent a long time up in Skylab, but that moment you take off, that has to be the moment.
Well, you know, if finally your dreams have come true, it's happening. And the 3 of us were all rookies, and we had heart rates of about 120. So we were excited. And any crewman who's not excited doesn't understand what's about to happen.
Well, those of us on the ground, our heart rates were going up just watching this, so I can only imagine. We're going to send it out now to Christopher Stein. Of course, he's on the ground at Cape Canaveral watching this live. What an amazing experience to witness, and a historical moment in NASA's
Unbelievable. He mentioned the heart rate, just watching it here on the ground and feeling it. My heart rate was going up. I mean, from head to toe, every single hair on my body standing up right now. It was simply amazing and absolutely fascinating to watch. Whenever the space shuttle lifted off, it was almost like looking directly into the sun. And if you're familiar with a welding torch, it was like staring at a welding torch. It was so bright you had to squint. The feeling, the look was simply amazing. And quite frankly, it was beautiful. It was just amazing to watch, and something to think about whenever you saw all that smoke. And I know so many people are focused on the engines as it's lifting off and how bright and beautiful that was. There's an estimated 900,000 gallons of water per minute flooding into the area beneath the space shuttle to keep the concrete area cool, but most specifically to prevent a lot of the noise that is propelled by the power of this machine. It is simply amazing. That felt like, and according to NASA, it's 7.8 million pounds of thrust. That's the same as 131 737. So only the astronaut there in the studio can tell you what that feels like. But just sitting here 2.5 miles away, seeing that and watching it, it was simply amazing. And it's for those of us that have been covering this story, it's also great to see this happen, knowing that Congresswoman Giffords is here and she got to see her husband, Commander Mark Kelly, safely blast off into space.
Now, you're there along with hundreds of thousands of spectators. Right. Take us back to that moment when liftoff occurred. What was the reaction of the people there?
Silence first. Everybody's, thinking and waiting and watching, is it really going to happen? And then members of the media, people around here, photojournalists, everybody you can think of started cheering, started clapping. It's really an event, and it's so special because I think you can agree many people grow up dreaming of doing things like that. And you can ask the astronaut there in the studio. This is what dreams are made of, and it's also sad at the same time because now there's only one more launch left, and that's going to take place in July, and that's Atlantis, and then the space shuttle program after 30 years is done.
Well, and Chris, you're down there in South Florida. People who live there, Susan, you've lived there, you know this. It's a regular occurrence, somewhat regular, to see a shuttle take off. It happens often. This is the second to the last shuttle to ever take off. Are you hearing a lot of talk about that? A lot of sadness from people who live down there, Chris?
Absolutely. You have to think about these communities because many of these communities directly in this area around Kennedy Space Center are based on the NASA program. You have contractors, you have obviously engineers, and some 500 people have already received their layoff notices just because of this launch, and then a whole nother team takes over. And then right after this, right after Atlantis, some 2,000 contractors are immediately losing their jobs. So it's great to see it, but at the same time it's sad because so many livelihoods are affected.
All righty, Chris, we appreciate your live perspective. We will check back in with you later on.